Hey, so today I wanted to talk about something which I think should pique the interest of anyone who is interested in sustainability, people who are interested in transitioning to a freer and fairer society, and this is also something that could illustrate what a post-scarcity, a truly sustainable post-scarcity world might look like. And that is a concept known as solarpunk. I've done a little personal digging on this, and so I'd like to give my thoughts. And so that's what this installment's going to be about. Now, before we begin to discuss what solarpunk actually is, I think we need to understand why the concept solarpunk is called solarpunk. In a lot of fiction, you have a lot of these alternative aesthetics that set the stage for a particular story or a piece of fiction. And this often involves a pronunciation of a specific technology or a specific kind of technologies or a specific era of technology. And with that, these social implications that arise. An old example is steampunk, which often uses industrial era aesthetics. Sometimes if the fiction has fantasy elements to it, there'll be a little bit of magic mixed in as well, but that's the general idea. Some may disagree with me, but I think a good example of steampunk is BioShock, more specifically BioShock Infinite. The earlier BioShock games, however, are what is known as dieselpunk, which is sort of a similar thing to steampunk, but with a more early 20th century aesthetic, usually involving styles and technologies of around the 1940s to 1960s kind of period. Now there's many different quote-unquote punks out there, styles for different kinds of fiction and such, and as of recent, one of the more popular of these, and one that I'm sure many who are watching this are very well aware of, is cyberpunk. Now cyberpunk has many variations, but there are a few general themes that characterize it. Cyberpunk in fiction is mostly used as a form of dystopia, in which there is usually rampant inequality, the environment is usually completely wrecked, people live in crowded neon cities and such, and there is also this technological aspect where man and machine have essentially melded and meshed with each other. Cybernetics, that kind of thing. And usually in this type of fiction there's usually other issues like increased violence and such as a consequence of these conditions. And cyberpunk started to become more popular around like the 80s with Blade Runner, and even more so today with fiction like Altered Carbon and, yes, the game Cyberpunk. There's also what I term more subtle cyberpunk, like some of the episodes of Black Mirror. But ultimately I think that cyberpunk represents a warning to people. A warning that our current practices in terms of our economy, in terms of our society and the way we're headed, this is what will come of it. So then, what can we do to avoid this dystopian future? Well, here is where I introduce solarpunk. Solarpunk is an aesthetic, or more widely a movement, that aims to envision and help create a sustainable, free and prosperous future for all of humanity. In contrast with cyberpunk, in a solarpunk vision, humanity has overcome its ecological challenges and has eliminated most, if not all, social, cultural and economic inequity. Unlike primitivism, of which proponents view technology and civilization at a wider level as inherently unsustainable, solarpunk envisions a truly green future brought about by the appropriate application of technology and economic practice, such as opting to use renewables for energy generation and looking to alternatives for food production, such as polycultures and high-density urban agriculture. And unlike cyberpunk, a vision of capitalism gone rampant, solarpunk is often envisioned as a post-capitalist future, with an emphasis on community and well-being as opposed to abstract notions like economic growth. While being a fairly new concept, there have been in recent history a fair few ideas, projects, conceptions that ultimately lead to a similar aesthetic and a similar set of ideas, including the thing that got me started on all of this, the Venus Project. I actually think a lot of Solarpunk concepts and ideas are inspired from the Venus Project and similar. The Venus Project is essentially the OG Solarpunk. So, what are my thoughts on the concept? Well, I actually really like it. I think if there was more Solarpunk fiction, there's definitely a lot of Solarpunk art that you can check out on the web, but if there was more fiction, if there was more ways of illustrating these ideas, these very good ideas that can lead to a more sustainable and equitable future, then I think that can be a really good way of raising awareness to people. And while the contrast, which is cyberpunk, shows what a dystopian future could look like, I think that Solarpunk is a great way of showing people what kind of future is actually possible if we play our cards right. And to be honest, fear and panic is something that has become so common these days that people have started to become allergic to it. I think a new wave of rational optimism, not to be conflated with complacency, is the way forward if we really want to catch people's attention, and Solarpunk seems like a good vehicle for that. The concept of Solarpunk also unifies people from different backgrounds, whether that be environmentalists, activists, futurists, or others, and it encourages the sharing of ideas and the collaboration between these groups. A potential concern I have about something such as Solarpunk is that as it becomes more popular as an idea, that it will be diluted. It will remain an idea, an aesthetic, and not a movement like it's intended to be. Behind all the veneer and artwork of futuristic vegetation-clad buildings and wide open green space needs to be a movement that will bring the changes needed to make that vision possible. Else, Solarpunk will just become another art form. This is why many, to quote, Solarpunks focus on and advocate for things like DIY and grassroots organisation. Anarchism, of which Solarpunk is closely related to, provides a great basis of theory. However, within the Solarpunk movement, there is a drive to actually start building a better world now, in the shell of the old one. And this is basically what I've been saying for the past year or so. Overall, I think that Solarpunk and Solarpunk-like ideas can be really beneficial to environmentalist and other activist movements. And as an aesthetic, it introduces regular people to radical ideas that may make them want to become part of the movement. This future that I advocate for, a sustainable post-scarcity world, can be described as a Solarpunk future, and you don't have to have a degree in the sciences or engineering to understand it. There is an artistic aspect to Solarpunk as well, as I'm sure you'll find many examples of dotted around the web. Anyone can be part of the Solarpunk movement, whether you're a scientist, an artist, an engineer, or someone who simply cares about the world and others. Solarpunk may not be a panacea in terms of modern activism, but it provides things that not many movements have, like a determined goal, a vision, and also having ways of how to get there. And that, in my view, has the potential to spark serious change. I've been Adam, this has been my take on Solarpunk, and I thank all of you for watching. If you are new here, you like what you see, and you would like to see more, then feel free to subscribe. I am a relatively small YouTuber, so sharing helps a lot in spreading my content out into the interwebs. I have a fun video planned for the next couple of weeks that will be very fitting to the festive theme. But for now, that's all from me. Stay safe, stay inquisitive, and I'll catch you all next time. Bye for now.